This seance was recorded on the 22nd of June 1972, medium Leslie Flint.
You come too?
Hello, Mickey.
Hello, Mickey.
Hello.
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 Where's everybody?
Some of them are on holiday.
Where's Jean?
Holiday.
And Ken?
On holiday,
And
Mickey.
Robert? There's three missing.
Oh.
And Nicholas, of course, can't come.
He would if he could.
How's everybody? Alright?
All right, sweetie.
Well,
Very
hold
well.
on a minute.
Oh, don't go away.
Oh, I've only just arrived. What do you want?
To talk to
We'd like to
Mary,
hear
what
you.
did you want, Mary?
We want you to talk to us,
About what?
like you did before, a few weeks ago.
Oh, do you really want me to?
Yes.
Oh, well, that's not fair to other people. You down in the dumps, are you, love?
Yes, very.
Do you have someone else then, Mickey, who wants to talk then?
Oh, there's always plenty of people.
Hmm.
Oh, poor Mary. I thought things would sort themselves out for you, Mary.
Yes, mostly, but there's one particular that isn't.
What about your house?
Oh, no, that's all.
That's all right, is it?
Mm. Thank you.
What about your sister?
That I can't understand.
What do you mean you can't
Oh,
understand?
you told me about it before, and I just don't understand it.
But why?
Well, I don't know. I don't know which one you mean.
Do what?
I don't know which sister you mean.
Haven't you got a sister who's in the country on her own?
No, they both live in the country, but they neither of them live on their own.
I don't know, I don't want to go into all that, but I just feel there's some problem about a sister, and I'm surprised you don't know anything about it.
No, I don't.
But that's not your problem, is it?
No,
Oh, oblige me.
never mind.
We won't be here next week, Mickey.
Oh, oblige me. Why
Okay,
don't you
Mum.
close the circle down for the summer and done with
Oh,
it?
don't do that.
No.
No, we'll mentally be here.
Well, if there's not going to be a proper complimentation, as you call it, what's the point?
Well, Ken and Jean will be back, I think.
But not Kate Annie.
We're going on, yes, we're just going on 2 weeks holiday.
They're good cakes, though.
Yeah, they make nice cakes. No, it's funny though. Two go away, two come back, two go away. I suppose someone else will be clearing out.
Well, it's the season, people
When's
think.
Robert coming back?
Once the season opens.
Season opens, I thought they'd opened months ago.
Yeah, sure, I'm sorry. Once the last play is on, Mickey. You know, the last play goes on.
How are you, Richard? You down in the dumps?
Oh, very much so.
Oh, what a fine crowd you lot are.
I'm not.
No, that's nice for a change. How are you then?
Fine.
What about Nigel?
All right, then, can we? But it's the first time that we've been away, really, for a long, long time, isn't
Oh,
it?
no, seriously, jokes apart.
We've been quite
I'm
regular
very
for
glad
years.
you are going away. I think a nice little break will do the pair of you good. Hope the weather improves.
Thank you.
After all, you took a holiday last week.
Oh, well, that's not exactly right. Just because I don't come through, that means I take holiday. How are you, Jimmy Ellis?
I'm very well, Mickey. No complaints whatever.
Oh, that's something, ain't it?
Yes. Mickey,
What?
will you tell me when my sister-in-law gets over there by sometime?
Well, if she arrives here, I'll let you know.
Will you? All right. My father's
She
not going
seems
to.
to hang on, don't she?
My father's not going to tell me. I want to find out from you if you can tell me.
Well,
You know.
looks as if she was coming a few months or
Well,
6 weeks ago. She seems to have held on.
Well, nobody. She isn't talking to anybody or anything. Nobody's seeing her. She's just breathing. That's all.
Well, she's probably more here than there. But
Probably.
Is Dr. Marshall about?
No answer to that one.
No.
how are you, Gwen?
Oh, I'm fine, Mickey, if only you would send
What's she
some
done with your hair?
sunshine. Done my hair? Well, everybody seems to like it like this, but I don't.
Like Alice in Wonderland without the ribbon.
When are we going to get some lovely sunshine, Mickey?
I don't know, when you come here I expect, but it won't be sun. No, jokes apart, how are you?
I'm very, very well. Very well.
Poor old
But I
Molly.
would like.
Are you really down the dumps, Molly? Everyone's down in the dumps, ain't
I'm
they?
not.
I'm not.
I'm not, Mickey.
Oh,
I don't think I am.
Mickey, as you talk to us now, could you tell us how you see us all? Do you see us all sitting around or just
well, yes, I do.
as
because,
vibrating things?
when I really get into the condition of vibration or what have you, I'm very conscious of you. Of course, in a more physical sense, I am conscious of you and I see you. Not always so, but sometimes more so than others. Yes, I can see you. Why do you ask?
I just wondered, how you saw us, how we appeared. to
How's
you.
your foot, Daph?
Oh, it's pretty bad, Mickey.
Oh dear.
Trouble is, I have to be on my feet so much, and I don't suppose that helps really, does it?
I suppose not really. If you got a job as a telephone operator, you'd be sitting down, wouldn't you?
Yeah, I would, wouldn't I?
And you're a good talker.
Oh, thank you.
I think
But
Mickey
do you
would
think
have
I
as a
should?
compliment.
Put people in touch, couldn't you?
Sorry?
You could put people in touch.
Good idea.
I suggested a cashier.
But if your job means you're on your feet all the time, it's not good, is it?
No, it isn't really.
It's a very practical idea.
Yes.
Mickey, when you bring, I suppose lots of people come with you to this circle, about where are they, as it were? Are they beside you?
Well,
Or?
it really depends. When you say where are they, I can't give you any geographical area, but
Well, where
on
are
a
you?
different
for instance?
wavelength according to their, well, according to them, in regard to their mental aspect. I mean, some people can know their vibration and their attitude of mind and what have you to some extent to tune in. Others on a different vibration have difficulty and perhaps can only transmit through someone else, or it's very complex really, because it depends a lot on if a person can get into the environment or the atmosphere, tune in, and the better they can tune in, the better the communication they can make. But a lot of people are on a different wavelength, and then we have to help them, and sometimes we have to transmit for them if they can't. It all depends on, everything depends on the individual, their aspect and their approach and what have you.
Yes.
Not
Could
much
you
an answer.
describe, what's going on your side at this moment, for instance?
Well, how can I put this? Well, I suppose if you could say that you're in the middle of the Albert
Yes.
and all around and about you tiered are many, many souls, many peoples, from different environments, different vibrations, different evolution or condition of evolution, and they're all sort of gathering around, and they're conscious of the fact that things are going on in the middle, and that there is a possibility of making some contact or communication, and they're all trying to tune in and be conscious and aware of what's going on, and most of them to some extent are, but they're not always able themselves to enter into the arena, if you like, or the middle. They can only sort of be bystanders and transmit. If sometimes we have to pick up their thoughts and hand it out to you, and sometimes on rare occasions, very rare occasions, we speak in the first person for them. A lot depends on the individual. If they overshadow us or come very close to us, we are taking on something from them and transmitting to you. We prefer them to do it personally, but occasionally they will, use one of us to transmit, and then we take on something of them and their personality, and we lose our own identity temporarily.
Are you, as it were, a medium
Well, I
on,
suppose in a kind of way I am a medium, yes.
on that side of life?
Yes.
Do you see them, Mickey, or is this mental?
Oh, it depends. If we're tuned into their particular environment or vibration, if they are lowering their sense of condition, as it were, to tune in with us, then we become aware of them, or we see them, or we pick up their mental thoughts, and we try to help them and to bring them forward and help them to transmit, and sometimes, of course, we do it for them. It's all a matter of vibration, a matter of tuning in, a matter of being in oneness, as it were. Some do it, some don't.
Mickey, was it Marshall who started talking right at the beginning? He just
Was
said-
there someone?
It sounded either like Marshall or
Oh,
Sam.
imagine.
And he said it's better when the medium is out.
Oh, goodness me, dear.
Yeah, well, you said to Leslie when you came through, "Oh, you come round."
Yeah, well, it depends. I think probably when the medium is out of the picture it's better, but
What from
usually he keeps out of it anyway.
from the
He doesn't
evidential?
impinge himself too much, thank God.
But is it from the evidential point of view, or is it better?
Well, the only thing about a conscious medium is that they're a bit of a bore. I mean, they sometimes unconsciously get apprehensive or begin to get concerned or worried, and indicate, then they sort of fluctuate the vibration, they get involved. The thing about a medium is a good medium should never be involved. That may sound odd, but the more a medium can keep out of the whole situation, the better it is. That's why it's just as well a medium has no awareness of the, awareness of the situation of the sitters or the communicators. In other words, a medium should be just an instrument, and he should be in a position to keep himself out of the picture. If he impinges himself or gets apprehensive or concerned about the phenomena or about the communication, if he starts getting worried or harassed or interested or deeply involved, then of course it builds up a barrier. You see, a clear channel is when the medium's out of it.
But does it also mean that it doesn't take as much physical energy from him if he is out, or not?
Well, this is one of those peculiar questions that I really don't quite know how to answer. Sometimes if the medium is out of the picture, that's in a trance condition, it is a good thing. I think the ideal medium is the person who is able to sort of separate himself from what is happening and not become involved in it. From the point of view of evidential value of a sitting, probably, in the case of which I speak, as it were, in this form of phenomena, if the medium is conscious and can sometimes enter into things, from the point of view of the sitter it might be interesting and evidential, but there again it all varies according to the situation of the person. I don't think it matters two hoots as long as we get over the results as to what the phenomena is or what the condition of the medium is, what happened, what is important to get the results.
Yes, but you still didn't answer if it's less strain on physically.
Depends. I suppose if the medium is out, it might be less of a strain. If he's really out, yes. I suppose it would be.
Yeah.
I really don't know the answer for certain. We should help Mary with her problem.
Very kind of you.
Is it purely material, love?
Yes.
Mickey, what happened about that young man the other week that, what wasn't just that he was sick really, was it?
Well, he's very sensitive, he's very psychic, he doesn't understand it. He was very sort of het up and caught up and tensed up and what have you, and apprehensive and a little nervous, and
Well, you know,
he wasn't
Ken.
really ready for it, was he?
No, I
Didn't
didn't
say that,
say-
Dory.
No. All right.
What were you going to say about Ken?
Nothing really.
Yes, you
Well,
was.
no, Blue Brown doesn't
They
want
stopped
it.
you.
Hmm?
They
Yes.
stopped you.
Yes, well,
There's no
I'd better
point.
stop. There's no point really.
It will go on the tape, that's what I was thinking.
Did Ken think he shouldn't sit then?
We thought that, yes.
I don't think the boy is ready for it in a way, that's true. I think he's very sensitive and very psychic and he needs to sit and develop properly. I don't think perhaps he was quite ready for this kind of circle. I think he was very nervous.
Yeah. He says, Mickey, he's written to that, and he says that he has a reoccurrence of this peculiar
Well,
feeling.
it's got, in a way, it's nothing to do with us. I mean,
No.
I don't think he's picked up any entity or anything like that which is affecting him, if that's what he may think. Definitely not. I think that he, well, I think he's a highly sensitive person, and I think that he's a very imaginative person. And in a way, these two things do, strange enough, go together. Because if you say to a person, what is imagination? Well, what is imagination? The point is that it is feasible. There's a lot of things which people on earth think are imagination are not imagination. They are influences brought to bear upon them from outside of life by entities who have not perhaps yet been able to make themselves felt fully, but only in part. But the point is that a lot of influences are brought to bear and do come and happen and affect people, and I think that he is a highly sensitive young man, and I think he's extremely psychic, and I think that if he's having a good circle under the right conditions, he would develop. But I think also that there's a risk to this, of course, that it is feasible, depending on his way of life and his outlook, that he could attract bad entities. I don't say he does, but I think it is feasible. I think he'd have to be very cautious and go about it the right way. I think it's very important that he should sit with the nice, right people. I think that it is feasible that at the moment he's going through a funny phase. I think he accepts and yet doesn't understand. I think that he is a natural psychic, but he needs guidance, he needs help. And I think that the influences that are brought to bear upon him are good, they're not bad. But I think that they're not forcing themselves upon him. I think he's augmenting this by kind of in a, well, fear, if you like. I think that he's going through a funny phase. He needs help.
Kind of a hysteria.
Sort of, yes.
Yeah. There's an excellent book called Psychic Self-Defense. Maybe he should. Are
you suggesting Mickey should read it?
No, I'm suggesting that somebody should suggest it to him. By Dion Fortune. It's a very good book.
I thought you was telling Mickey.
No, of course he wasn't. Yes.
Mickey, when...
That's the children's place, isn't it?
No, Richard didn't think that. Did you,
No.
I mean, Richard can be pointed at times, but he doesn't mean it like that, do you, Richard?
No, I did not.
When...
You're a funny old sausage, you are, Richard.
I am, yes. We know
Are
that.
you no more sorted out yet, then? You're no more sorted out.
Well, my mother, as you know, came to the rescue, so that's helped that area of my life. And my professional life at the moment is very good. I'm enjoying my job very much. It's going terribly well. The music, I think, is going well and creatively fine. But there's a lot of tension at the theatre at the moment. We're all living on our nerves.
I wish I could help Mary. I don't know how to.
Mickey,
What?
when you are talking, at times, if the medium is fidgety and moves, does the voice box move about?
No, I'm not conscious of it. It could well do.
Well, sometimes it appears that your voice is in one place, and another time your voice is in another place. So I just
Well, I'm
wonder...
not conscious of pitching my voice in the sense that you would understand it. All I know is that the voice box is in the auric emanation, as you term it, the medium, and that is where we have to stay. And in the old days, when the medium was younger and the power was probably stronger, and the mediumship was more versatile, I suppose you'd say. I don't know if you call it that, but we can move about much more. But latterly we find it's easier and not so demanding on the medium or the power or health-wise to stay in his auric emanation. In the old days, of course, we could move about much more freely. I suppose we could still do it if we wanted to, but there seems to be no point. I mean, after all, we get over, that's the main thing.
Yes.
So
Tell us something cheerful, Mickey.
Well, I don't really know what to tell you. Honestly, I don't.
Can you tell us,
What?
Mickey, I mean,
I wish I could help Mary.
That was
Richard,
oh dear. Embarrassing.
what was you saying, Richard?
I was going to ask you about, I had this awful loss of losing the 3 dogs last year, and I send out thoughts to them. One obviously was a very highly developed character, and I can believe that she still exists and is not going to go into a sort of group soul. Can you tell us a bit about animals and group souls and things?
Oh, that's a tall order.
Well, can you tell me what's happened to my animals?
Well, I can tell you what's happened to your animals,
Please.
and that is that they're as much with you in a sense as they were before. They live very much with you and around you, and your present dogs are conscious of them.
Are they?
And I think that you'll have various things happen in the not so far distant future which will clearly indicate the presence of the animals concerned.
Yes.
You see, what sustains an animal, what sustains a creature, as you term it, of the lower orders? I don't necessarily mean that I think they're of the lower nature or lower order, but what sustains them is the love and the affection that they receive from people that they love. I mean, human beings. And I don't want to suggest either that other animals who are less fortunate and don't have a good home, or a nice person to care for them and love them, that they're in a sense any less important. But you see, animals and are also old souls as well as human beings. They're not necessarily newborn creatures. And sometimes, let me tell you, although you'll never believe this, some animals are reborn or recreated or come into being for a definite purpose. And sometimes they choose what you call the lower strata, if you like, and there's a reason and a purpose. We know a lot of human beings do the most peculiar things and act in the most peculiar way. But the point is that sometimes it's necessary and essential for human beings to return to Earth as a lowly creature. And now don't confuse issues here, because it's implying that some animals are human beings that have come back in a lower form of life. But there is a certain truth in that. But what I'm trying to say is that you must get into your novels that although people become individuals and are separate and their characters and personalities and they evolve, yet flowing through all life, whatever form it takes, is the same divine power, the same force, the same something that is the animating power behind everything. And just because an animal is, as it's usually termed, on a lower grade, doesn't mean to say that it hasn't got its place or its purpose or its meaning, and that in some ways it may well be, because of its lower status, or so it seems so according to the human element, or man's element, that it's inferior. It's not necessarily so. There are some animals who are certainly superior to human beings and vice versa.
So one can continue to send love out to the animals, and they receive that.
Of course they do. But don't you see that when you send out your thoughts, and they are vibrating, active thoughts,
Yes.
when they are given the wings, if you like, to carry them of love, they transcend material things and they enter into an harmonious spiritual something, I don't know how to express this, which is reciprocated. I mean, you haven't really lost your doggies.
Yes.
You've lost their presence in a physical sense. You miss them, but they're very much with you, and they still retain the outer form or semblance as you knew them. And when you come here, they will rejoice in your coming, and they will be there to welcome you. But you must not think, and I find it's very hard for you not to think, and this doesn't apply just to you, you must not think always of things, or people for that matter, or animals, or what have you, necessarily just as you visualise them. It's hard not to, but a person or an animal is more than a figure or a shape, more even than what it seems on the surface. It's a soul.
Yes.
It's something which is a living reality, which has taken form or shape temporarily to express some aspect of itself. It may take the shape of a cat or a dog or a bird or a tree. You may think this is stupid, but trees have life, trees have personality, trees have feelings, flowers have feelings, flowers have an animation which possibly you don't even think exists. But if you can see that behind all life is the same reality, living vital force which gives life, if you can accept that everything that exists around and about you is part of your existence, well, of course you realise it is, but if you give it its true perspective and place, and don't necessarily look down on something because it's smaller or more insignificant, because it doesn't seem to have any emotion or doesn't seem to show any sort of awareness. This is a big mistake that human beings make. Human beings assume that they are the first, that they are the predominant, that they are the main purpose and meaning of life, which in a sense can be considered to be true, but this is not necessarily so altogether. Some peoples may well be, some human beings are superior, but not superior in the material sense, but superior in the spiritual sense. What is important is to see that everything fits, everything has its place. Your little doggies are as real to you, and more real perhaps than some human beings. The point is that they have their character, they have their personality, they have their background, they have their experience, and they have taken on something from coming into your world and knowing you, and possibly, and I think this is probably very true, of having previous existences in some other shape or some other form. They are evolving, they are developing, they are becoming, and they are taking from all life something which is essentially necessary to their evolution. And the fact that they've been part of your life, you have given them something which is a little extra, which is something very vital, and they will no doubt evolve, and there may come a time when they will be just more than dogs. I wish I knew how to put this into words, but you will give things names, you will give things shapes, you will give things forms, you will accept things in certain categories and assume that that is this, that is that, and that is this, and so on. But life is much more than that, much more than it seems. It's just not just shape, form, and outward ceremony, and it's not what it altogether seems to you. Love is comprehensive. It's not confined to human beings. It's not confined in any way at all. When love can express itself, it expresses itself in numerous ways, through myriad ways, and through all forms of life. Even a flea can love a flea.
No, what you're saying, I understand perfectly, because certain of the animals that I have had in my life obviously have great depth, which they bring with them, which suggests an experience beyond just having lived 2 or 3 years or 2 or 3 months.
Well, some of the animals that you've known and loved, and animals that come into your world, are thousands of years old, and they come back with a lot of wisdom. They may not be able to speak to you. They may not be able to demonstrate perhaps to the full extent as you perhaps would wish they could if it were possible. But they have a loyalty, they have a sense of being, they have a sense of place, they have a power which sometimes is difficult, in fact impossible to explain, but they are aware of things of which a human being is not aware. They are aware of people arriving before they reach the door, whereas a human being can hear nothing and sense nothing. Animals sense far more than human beings for various very good reasons. Animals are extraordinarily sensitive. They may not have all the faculties that a man or a woman has, or a material person, but they have a sensitivity which is far more embracing than the human race.
Why is it we keep getting so many cats?
What?
Why is it we keep getting
Well,
so many
they have an
cats?
instinct. They know they're drawn. They don't quite know perhaps exactly how or why they're drawn to a certain place. But indeed, that might apply to human beings too in some cases. The point is that they are brought or they're guided or helped to find somewhere where they can be cared for, even if it's only temporary. Nothing, I mean, so many things happen and you can't make head or tail of it and you think, well, why should this be or why should that be? But behind everything is a divine power, and there is a force, a life-giving force that guides and directs and even tries to prevent. I mean, a lot of the disasters that happen in your world could have been prevented if human beings had taken warning, or if they used even common sense, as you tell me. The vast majority of the things that happen to man is what man has created for himself, because he's cut himself adrift from the things of the Spirit. He's closed his eyes to the power of the Spirit and the realization of the Spirit, and he's cut himself so adrift that he's so materialistic that he creates barriers, he creates conditions which bring results which are often dire and distressing. And although a lot of innocent people suffer, it doesn't alter the fact that you cannot escape one from the other. For what animates one person animates another. So if you think wrongly or act wrongly, then obviously those thoughts, even if they don't necessarily affect you at the time, can and will affect someone else. Until humanity realizes that they have got to come together in a complete understanding of the power of thought, the power of love, and the power of the Spirit which animates all things, this is what is the tragedy. The world has not learned harmony, it hasn't learned anything about vibration, it hasn't learned that the realization of the meaning and the purpose of life is to expand and grow together as one. Although you're individualists and you have your egos and you have your impressions as to what you should be and what you should not be, or what you should do or should not do, all this is important to a point. But until you learn to lose yourself in love and in harmony, in the brotherhood of man, you cannot hope to find yourself as an individual. And the animal kingdom, to some extent, strange as it may seem to you, is more aware of this than the human race. I know the animal kingdom sometimes behaves badly, sometimes they kill, but usually they kill because they have to survive, and because it's some instinct from way back when. Yes, all this is true, but it's an extraordinary thing how much more the animal kingdom has a regard for life than the human.
Mickey, surely a place like this, which is has a kind of spiritual vibration, sure, answering Bram's question, surely it sort of must shine or vibrate like a beacon, so that a stray cat would be drawn towards this
Yes,
place.
that's true.
Because it would get care and warmth.
Well, this is it. You see, when people throw out from themselves a love for the human race, then their love is regarded and respected and reciprocated. If a human being has a great love and feeling for animals, then they throw out something from themselves, and this is reciprocated, and the animals and the humans, as the case may be, will react accordingly. It's the old story, it's as old as the hills. If you throw out the right kind of feelings and emotions and thoughts, and you throw out love, then all this will naturally attract to you the people of like manner. It's true, you'll attract some who will take you for a ride, make use of you, and discard you, and you'll feel, well, that you've been through a mangle and all the rest of it. But the point is that you never ever can possibly conceivably lose by giving love. You may be taken for a ride, you may be disappointed or disillusioned, someone has failed you, but their failure is of themselves. They've failed themselves, not you. You may feel disheartened and disillusioned, whether it's with a human being or whether it's with an animal. You may give a lot of affection, a lot of regard to somebody, or even to an animal. It doesn't seem to reciprocate very well, or if it does, you think to yourself, well, is this real or ain't it? The point is that it doesn't really matter in a sense. It does matter, but if you're giving out for what you get in return, then your love, in a way, is not perfect. What is perfect love? I mean, perfect love is when you lose all sense of self, that you love because you give because you want to give, not because you think, what am I going to get from this, or what reaction am I going to create, or what are people going to think about me. Until you learn to lose yourself, you cannot hope to ever really truly find yourself. You must learn to give of yourselves and to forget yourselves, and you'll be surprised how much will come back to you like a boomerang. But you mustn't anticipate that because you do something, you expect something in return. You must give, as the animals invariably do give, and many of them do give. I mean, you see a herd of elephants. Perhaps you've never seen a herd of elephants. Great big, cumbersome, lumbering creatures, don't appear to have a bit of savvy at all. Little piggy eyes and long trunks and funny little twirly tails. But there's more oneness with a herd of elephants, and more understanding and more love and more patience and more tolerance with a herd of elephants than there ever is with the human race. You can learn a hell of a lot from the elephant.
Ricky, when an animal passes over, does it automatically go on to the sphere that its owner will go on to after?
Well, there are many spheres. You see, this business of spheres and conditions of life and planes and summerlands and all these other phrases that people have created, and sometimes people on this side have used those terms because they couldn't think of anything else to use. In fact, there is no way of depicting or describing. But all these different planes, in a kind of way, intermingle. There are millions of them, not just one or two or three, or the seventh plane. All this is just talk. It doesn't really amount to 12 of the pins. It's only to try and give you some sort of vague idea. But every plane is a series of many planes interwoven. And according to a man's evolution development and his consciousness widening and expanding, so he'll be receptive and aware of and be conscious of different vistas and different aspects. And so he'll become a little wiser, a little more understanding, a little more evolved or developed. But the whole point is that you cannot tie down animal kingdom or the human race or any form of life to any particular given a set idea or values or planes until man realizes that what animates the ant animates the human being. The ant is minute, but it has intelligence, it has a brain. As strange as it may seem, indeed it has been said that to watch the ant thou sluggard and learn of his ways and be wise, or something of the sort. And how true this is. Man thinks he's supreme, he's superior. In some respects he is. He has made more advancement. He has made more progress. He is much wiser in many respects, but unfortunately he's grown in wisdom in a material way, but he's lost a lot in the evolution of and development of the material brain and material power, but he's lost this spiritual realization, the simplicity that goes with understanding of the things that really are permanent. The permanent things are not what man thinks are permanent or would like to think are permanent. The permanent things are the things that are of the spirit, the things that are deep-rooted, the things that are basic, the things that are really fundamentally eternal. Man is brought into the world for various very good obvious reasons. But he should not think that because he is intelligent, or appears to be, and is indeed very intelligent in many ways, that he is so superior in some respects to the less blessed, or so it seems, or less evolved. A man can learn a lot from a goat.
So really it's love that draws them together, the animals and the
Yes, well, I
humans.
suppose in a kind of way the fundamental thing, as I said before, is love. But you must not think of love as love. I don't mean, you see, love is many faceted. It's many. But if you can see love as the hub of the wheel, and there are many spokes, and it is the wheel that carries and makes possible the evolution or the revolution or the carrying forward or the overcoming of space and time, if you can see that the hub is the love, the fundamental love, which is in all life. I mean, in a hedgehog, you think a hedgehog, all those prickly things, and it curls up, full of fleas. You can't imagine anything beautiful in that. And yet there is a magnificence in a hedgehog. There is a magnificence even in a flea. Though you may scratch yourself stupid and wish you could get rid of the damn thing. But the point is that it's symbolic. Can't you see that in everything there is something of great value? I don't mean to say, for instance, that a flea exists here or a hedgehog exists here. In some ways you can say, yes, all right, it's of a lower form of existence. But it came into creation, it came into a form, it came into a life. And behind that life is something dynamic. And it will not remain. You kill a flea, all right, it's finished, it's no longer there. It's unimportant, it's trivial, it's stupid, if you like. But there is life. And you can't destroy it. You do destroy it. But the point is that it animates and exists. You're living in a world of illusion. That which you think is real, that which you think is permanent, or to some extent appears to be permanent. You have an antique piece of furniture, you treasure it. It's full of wormholes. But it has a great value because it's old and because it's beautiful. And yet it is disintegrating all the time. It really has no substance, only what appears so. And yet it is a reality, temporarily, perhaps 100 years, 1,000 years. Like old King Tut's tomb, 3,000 years of history. 3,000 years it seems as bright and as beautiful as the day it was created. In a kind of way this is true, it is so. But it is not lasting. Time is an illusion. Love is the only thing that transcends time and space. Love is the fundamental truth behind everything that exists. When you get down to fundamentals, you'll start to learn and start to live. And you can even learn to love many of the things that you dislike. And once that is the beginning of the secret of love, is to learn to love the things that normally you'd be repulsed by or dislike. It's easy to love something that is beautiful. It is easy to love someone because they're attractive, or because they're physically attractive or beautiful or whatever. But the point is, to start off on the right foot, you've got to learn the things that you normally hate. When you learn to love the hated things, then you're beginning to learn how to love. And when you learn to appreciate the difficulties and the problems and the setbacks, the disappointments, the disillusionments, when you can say to yourself, well, I've got to face this, I've got to suffer this, I've got to experience this. You may loathe and detest the experience. You may think it's unnecessary. You may dislike intensely why you should be brought into a situation which you feel you can't face up to. But this is something which is karmic in a sense, that you have to learn to overcome. You have to learn to appreciate that by overcoming, then you'll gain a victory, and you're then well on the way to progress. If life was simple and easy and straightforward, everything fell into your lap, you had no problems, and you just had love, so you should call it, of a certain kind, and everything seemed to be just the way you wanted it. You wouldn't be really happy, you wouldn't really be existing, you wouldn't really be learning or gaining knowledge or experience, you wouldn't be evolving, you really would be standing still. In fact, you'd be retrogressing instead of advancing. Until you learn that everything that happens, to some extent, I don't say it's ordained, but it's been created by man himself, by other men if you like, and you may suffer the consequences of other people's faults and failings. But the point is that you are living, you are experiencing, you are gaining, though you may not always win a victory, you are gaining some knowledge, something that is of value. And when you overcome yourself, and when you overcome your problems and your setbacks, when you learn how to live, and truly overcome, and truly sort of become aware of the fact that you have got to give, and keep on giving in love and in service, forgetting yourself, then you begin to really understand, then you really begin to live, then you really begin to grow, then you really begin to expand, then you really become a spiritual being, and then you begin to see the beauty and the reality of what life is all about. Don't worry too much about the setbacks. Don't worry too much. I know you can't help it, but don't worry too much about your problems. If you have faith, if you realize that there is a power that will help you to overcome, that there will be a strength given to you if you deserve that strength. And I would point this out, it's also very important, that sometimes it is necessary for you to be disillusioned. Sometimes it's necessary for you to be set back. Sometimes you have to be even a little crushed until something is knocked out of you that is holding you back from true progress. Don't judge everything on the surface. Don't judge everything by material things. Try to see that if you have faith within yourself, and if a thing is necessary or essentially good for you to have it, it will be brought into being. The things that really matter will come to you. The things that are not so vital and not so important, they may and will probably, almost certainly, escape you, or they will, well, be set aside. Try to see their values, real values. Try to hold on to true values. Try to cling to these things that matter. Try to evolve them and develop them within yourself so that others may benefit. But if you can only learn the first lesson, and that is to try to forget yourself, and then you'll start to advance yourself. But you'll do it in such a natural way that you'll suddenly become really aware of your true self, and you'll be proud to a certain extent of what you have become. And this is the first step in advancement. Too many people think too much of what am I going to get out of this? Is it going to be worth my while? Is it worth the effort? These are all the wrong principles. You've got to think now, am I doing some good here? Am I making some contribution? Am I helping this or that person, or this cause? Am I serving humanity? Am I giving something which is essentially of God from within myself for the common good? Until you get your realizations right within yourself of what is and what is not, what is important and what is not important, until you realize that you yourself have a power within yourself that can create a condition and a vibration and a harmony and a peace and a tranquility and a love around you in your daily lives, until you can put your own selves in order and put your house in order, there's no hope for you. You've got to learn from within yourself. Put your own house in order, and then you can advance. Then you can see with a clarity of vision what life is all about. You can see how the animal kingdom has its part to play, how near you are to those lesser creatures, as you term them, and how in some ways they're much wiser than you, and much more humble. And because of their humbleness, and because of the love they bear, because it's sincere and real, because they take no advantage and ask nothing, only love, when you can give love as they can give love, then you'll advance.
It's very interesting. Thanks, Mickey.
Mickey, going back to your hedgehog.
Yes, my poor little hedgehog with its fleas.
All right. You know how a child will find in America, say, a possum, or here a pet, a wild rat, or a hedgehog and so on. Is it true that if a child or a human being starts to keep an animal, a wild animal, as a pet and pours love and care on it, that gradually helps develop the animal soul to move on?
I think that one has to remember that whether it is human beings or whether it is animals or insects, if you like, or whatever form of life, to some extent all life has unfortunately over centuries developed within itself an inner awareness of fear. And I think that animals, especially animals that are not domestic, wild animals if you like, they have a fear within themselves of what a human, for instance, may do to them. I mean, you've got to remember that for years man has hunted the animal has learned to fear the human, and there is this basis or element of fear. I think that this goes back through time itself. History is full of the fear that has been instilled into all forms of life. If there was trust, if there was love, if there was faith, and many animals have this trust and have this faith, and then they're shocked and they become aware that they cannot trust. I know that animals do have to live one off the other. I mean, this is an unwritten law, if you like. And I think that also that life realises to some extent that this is an aspect of the material part of life that we to some extent must live off the other, but there is a way of life which was once, I'm told, way back in the dimmest time of history, long before the world was contaminated, if you like. There was a period, untold millions and millions and millions of years ago, in the early initial stages, where there was no fear. Fear was something that evolved and developed over eons of time, and it brought in its wake all sorts of fearsome creatures, not the least of which was man, I should imagine, but still, he developed. The point is, seriously, I think that when you go back to untold centuries ago, you find there were weird creatures, extraordinary creatures who roamed the earth, and you have all these peculiar reptiles and what have you in the initial, or what is termed the early stages. But I think that man has not yet discovered that before that period of time there was another form of life which now exists in the planets. Of course, I'm getting on to another story. But there are planets where forms of existence live superior to man that once existed upon Earth and have become so sort of evolved that they are now, and have been for some considerable time, trying to contact Earth with the intention of helping Earth before Earth destroys itself. But this is another long-winded story, and I'm rather gone away from what I started to talk about. But if you could only see that behind everything in life, way back untold millions and millions of years ago, there was a fundamental truth, which is life, which is basically the stimulating force, the animating force, the creative force, the energizing force, which gave birth. Friction created man, friction created life. The world came into being through a series of events which one day somebody wiser than me will explain to you.
Please.
The Adam and Eve theory is, well, just a story, and yet there is a basic truth even underlying that, but it's much more involved than you understand. But don't see what you think you see, in a sense, in life. I know it's human and natural that some people are scared stiff of, well, certain forms of animal life or insect life, and a tadpole or what have you turning into a frog, and a frog is ugly with big bulging eyes and rather revolting. But these are aspects of life which are part of your life. You may not like to consider yourself in any way part or shape or form or in any way linked with a frog. But whether you like it or not, you have still got an aspect of self which is akin to all the lower forms, as you term them, of life. What animates the frog animates you. What animates the flea animates you. You're on a higher plane. All right, but accept that within certain, well, the point is that man has evolved. But because he has evolved, he should therefore be predominantly more merciful. He should be predominantly more full of love, more full of humanity and spiritual consciousness and awareness. Man has evolved scientifically. Man has evolved in many respects far away from the ordinary, well, things of life, whether it's a bird that flies in the tree or whether it's a snake that crawls in the grass. But you are still physically, materially that is, being animated by the same living force. Spiritually, you are all involved, though you may not even like to consider yourselves so. The snake may not become a snake, but it may enter into another form or shape and take upon itself another aspect of life at a future point in time. You cannot escape from each other. You cannot escape from the past. The past is what has moulded the present, and the present is what is moulding the future. But the past, the present, and the future are all one. There is no demarcation line between this or that particular era of time, only that which seems so. You talk about this century, you talk about that century. You measure things by space, by time, by rule, by experience. But really it is all one. You are the product of your ancestors, and once you were your ancestors. You come back in a different form, in a different shape, under a different name, under a different guise. You're still having to come back to learn. And there will come a point of time when you'll assimilate all that the earth can give you, and then you will release yourselves materially and become more spiritually aware and more spiritually evolved. But until you have more things to learn, which can only be learned in a material sense, then you will no doubt be called to return again. This is also involved. If only I knew how to put it into words. But you've got to wake up and realise that you have got to understand yourselves. You've got to understand that you are spiritual beings in embryo, that you are evolving slowly, very slowly, and that you have evolved to a point far removed perhaps from some forms of life, but you are still akin to those forms of life, and you must still help those forms of life, and above all, possibly, you must help the form of life in which you find yourself. You must learn how you yourself have the power within yourself, by the power of love, to overcome and to assist, to help, to guide, to uplift, inspire, and to bring about a perfection of a kind. There's no such thing as complete perfection, of a perfection of a kind of the way of life in which you must find yourselves eventually. You have got to go on and on until you learn. Why not try more to learn it within yourselves and to express it around and about you? Put your house in order, and then you can start helping other people to put their house in order. But until you know how to sweep a room clean, you can't expect to show anyone else. There's too many people running around polishing up other people's mirrors in which they can't see a proper reflection.
Here, here.
I wouldn't dream of polishing anybody's mirror, not even my own.
No, but it's true. You do, don't you, know, love? Because you get lots of people who tell other people how to do this or how to do that.
Oh yes,
You know what I
they're
mean?
boring.
And they're always polishing up other people's mirrors and they can't see their own reflection for the dust.
I know.
You know,
so
I
many
mean,
people like
this
that.
applies in a sense to what I'm trying to say, and about human beings. They must find themselves and try to see what makes themselves tick, and why they behave and why they act in the way they do, and why they think. And, you know, I mean, I know that people are many-faceted, and this is understandable. A human being is not just one person anyway. A human being are many people. And when a person realises that what you think is yourself, you are many selves. One day you may be Mr. Jekyll, the next day you may be Mr. Hyde. And the point is you may be Tweedledum and Tweedledee. You may be this, you may be that. No human being is just one facet. A human being is a combination of many people. All these people have lived before, had their living and their being and their part in life to play. And you are now assembled in one body. And you cannot understand yourself sometimes. But when you can get down to root bottom, and you can say, well, this is the root, and this root is love, and this love that I have, and which I have found within myself, will bring forth something that is beautiful, and that will attract other people, and which will give them encouragement to do something with themselves. And in other words, you have got to get down to yourself to see what makes you tick, to see what makes you what you really are, to see that you have been and still are, to some extent, an expression of other people's thoughts, minds, ideas. Get yourself in some sort of sorted out state and see that you are what you are, and try to do, you want to throw overboard some of the worst aspects and cling on to the good and develop those, evolve those, cast off fear, cast off the things that hold you back. Give yourself strength through the realization of what you are within yourself and what you may yet become. Know that you are spirit. Know that you are spiritual beings. That you can overcome all the things that cause you to concern. You may sometimes lose a little bit on the swings in a material sense, but as long as you're not found wanting, as long as you realize the balance is good, and that you are doing that which is good, because you want to do that which is right, and you want to help those who are less fortunate, because you want to give enlightenment where there is darkness, because you want to give the brilliance of the power of the Spirit which is shining deep within you, some realization that others may see that which comes within yourself. Let your light so shine that others may see. This is the beginning of the true evolution and development of the human being. Do this and you won't go far wrong. There's so much good in all. There's so much that you've got to dig for. But if you dig, you'll find there's a gold mine in every human being. Don't let your brain boxes be closed. Try to realize that there's a light that can be opened up, that can shine, that you're not closed boxes, darkened boxes. In those boxes there's brilliance, there's brightness, there's intelligence, there's realization of truth, and it can be a great incentive to others. Try to see yourselves what you are, spiritual beings, but because of the casing you can't always get out. But you can get out, you can fight your way out, and you become such a living reality of the power of the Spirit that you can amaze everyone, you can amaze yourselves, and you can truly do the things that Christ and the great teachers and the great prophets spoke about, that you can remove mountains by faith, faith in the power of the Holy Spirit, faith in the realization that love transcends all, that love opens all the doors, and that no door is shut to those who love. Believe me, love can overcome all your problems and can make for you a joyous and a happy and a realization of truths which you never thought possible you could conceive or experience. Nothing is closed to those who seek, and those who seek shall truly find. If only you can understand all these things, if only you can get down to rock bottom, if only you can see that when you give forth those things which are deeply rooted within you, nothing is impossible. You can overcome all the problems that beset you, no matter how mundane or how stupid they may seem. In fact, some of the mundane and stupid ones you can throw overboard and forget them, because they're not worth holding on to anyway. And even if you achieve some of the things you think you should achieve or ought to achieve or want to achieve, it wouldn't necessarily bring you happiness. It might bring you unhappiness and bitterness. What you've got to see within yourself is what is important and what is unimportant. Strive for the things that are important. Strive to realize that if you amass certain material things, they may be important and they may perhaps be of benefit, and perhaps through amassing those things or obtaining those things you can help others and serve others. If the motive is good, these things will come to you. If the motive is bad, they may still come to you, but they won't do you any good. The thing is to only desire those things which are good, and you will find that they will be provided. You will not want. If you have faith, nothing is lost. Your faith shall make you whole, and when you have this realization, then you'll understand some of the things we're trying to tell you. And until you get right with yourselves, you cannot be right with anyone. You cannot even be right with us. We can come and we can point the way, we can talk to you, we can help you, but we cannot make you what you do not want to become. You have free will. If you follow that which we give, we can help you, we can guide you, we can uplift you, we can inspire you, we can change you, we can bring you a great happiness, and nothing can ever erase. But you must help us to help you, and you must help yourselves above all else. If you don't do that with your own free will, then all that we endeavour to do is a lost cause. It all depends to a great extent on yourselves. Don't go around moaning about your situation or your setup, or what's wrong, or why should this be, or why should that be. Try to get right with yourselves. Try to have faith in yourselves. Have faith in the power that is within yourselves. Release yourselves from all the mundane material things where possible. I know it's not always possible, but try to see what is good and what is not good. Try to see what is right and what is not right. Try to see what is of value and not of value. Try to see which are truly the great pearls of Christ, and try not to be content just with the oyster. Try to realize that within every oyster there is something, maybe hidden, but there is a pearl. But you've got to dig for it, you've got to seek for it, you've got to die for it. It won't just fall into your lap, you've got to work for it. And the whole point is that you have within yourself such an enormous storehouse of power. Once you begin to dig and find it, then you'll begin to expand and grow. Don't keep moaning, do, but don't moan. The more you moan, the worse it will be. No good saying, oh, why does this and why does that. Try to see why it happens, what happened. Why did it happen? What brought it into being? Was it my fault? Was it partly my fault? Was it this person's fault? Was it circumstance? Is it the setup of the world? Of course it's all these things, but try to realise that within yourself there is a power that can overcome, that can set your feet on the path of righteousness and of truth, that can set your feet on the path of progress, that can give you the realisation of true peace and tranquility, whereby you will transcend all these things that cause you distress. Have power, have faith, have love, and these three great attributes can carry you far beyond the confines of your material plane. Now I must go. Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Oh,
Good
good night,
night,
Mickey.
Mickey.
Thank you very much.
Quite a talk.
Boy, he can really talk when he gets going.
All started about your dog yesterday.
That's a wonderful one.
I thought it was terribly interesting.
Wonderful.
Lovely, lovely.
There's Mickey on this different vibration.
Yes.
Yeah, there were several topics there, interesting topics.
Folks, you can't absorb it all. You can't.
No, you can't.
No.
No.
Oh,
Like
there's
that
a
other-
brilliant light above you, Leslie.
Like
Well,
the one
yeah.
you're looking into,
Linda.
seeing
Like,
something new.
What was happening?
Which do you think?
Ooh!
You don't get anything out of it until you read it. You've got to read it. You've got to study it.
You have,
You
yes.
can't listen to this and get anything out of it, just